welcome to Run, Build, Grow, the podcast that laces up its running shoes and dives deep into the heartbeat of the communal spirit of running. I'm your host, Andrew Ware, the Runnin' Rev, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exhilarating journey where we explore stories that go beyond the pavement. On this episode, I bring in co-founder and leader of WeRun313, Joe Robinson. You'll remember Tommy Runs and I having a little bit of conversation about WeRun313, about Joe, and even about his co-founder Lance and all the amazing things that they are doing. So I knew I had to get Joe on, talk to him about this run club, about this group, about this area, and see, where did this idea come from? What has been so important? And I just wanted to unpack these things because seeing the impact it made on Tommy made me want to see, almost where the milk was made, what sprouted this great and wonderful and awesome experience. And so I had to get Joe on. I'm also working on Lance. Hopefully I'll have him on soon as well, but let's listen and hear this conversation with Joe. All right, welcome in everybody. Today I'm joined by Joe Robinson. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm good, brother. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm just enjoying the coffee out of my mug here. About to go for a run soon.
There you go. Hopefully it's nicer up in Detroit than it is down here.
No, it's not. It's like it's snow on the ground. It's 30 degrees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all get snow. Right now we just got rain.
Oh yeah, no. We get snow for sure. We get snow. Yeah.
Well, the stories of Joe are well told, and comes highly recommended to this. So Joe, let's kind of start right from the top. What is your community, and what makes your community awesome?
My community is WeRun313. WeRun313 is a Detroit-based run club co-founded by myself and my partner Lance Woods. In 2019, we're a social run club that connects like-minded individuals through running to build a healthier and happier community. And what makes the community so awesome is that we're nestled and based in the city of Detroit, which is a predominantly African-American city. And it was stated that in the pandemic, they said that 3 out of 4 people here had an underlying health issue. So to have an activation like WeRun313, a fitness group, a fitness brand, where we're mobilizing and activating people here amid us having all these health issues surrounding the city, I think that's what makes it awesome.
And listeners will remember, the impact that WeRun313 has already been expressed here on the pod through Tommy, and to have Joe come on and really talk about the basis for this community that kind of has helped to launch so many folks in the Detroit area. As you and Lance probably are looking at the landscape of the pandemic, and like I've said, the pandemic, I think, offered folks an opportunity because almost like what you're talking about. There was a real nature of recognizing maybe who we are as humans, what's happening with our bodies, what's happening with our lives, being drawn to a sense of movement and activation. And yet within your community, it sounds like there was also, other contributing factors, and maybe even a sense where they don't want to just get out and move. Maybe they want something else, or maybe there are things that are preventing them. So what did those early conversations, those early brainstorms, those early thought processes look like for you as you're looking at the landscape of Detroit and thinking to yourself, man, we could be healthier, we could move more, we could create community by focusing on this?
I think it goes all the way back to just me being a child. Just a lot of foods and things like that I just never liked, that are traditional amongst African American people. I just never liked that. Just a lot of that stuff just growing up, I never liked. You know what I mean? I never liked bacon. I never liked a lot of the traditional foods that are eaten at Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the stuff, like it was very picky about food, and that kind of springboarded me when I became a young adult, I say when I was maybe 19, like I just gave up on McDonald's, right? I'm 33 now, so that was over 14 years ago. I just kind of gave up on that, and I never looked back. You know, in all fast food, I just never looked back after that. And so around there, I started to develop like a kind of like a health conscious kind of way of thinking. Then soon after that, still a very young adult, I gave up on high fructose corn syrup sodas. So Detroit, we're known for our Fago here. I don't know if Fago down there, but they make Fago here, so it's highly revered here in Detroit. And I'm not denouncing Fago being a hometown brand, but it's really big here. We grew up on it. And I just was like, you know what? I don't want to drink sodas and different things, Sprites and Coca-Colas that has these high fructose corn syrups in it. So that is just like the early that was when I recognized early on that I was becoming more health conscious. Very early in my life. Like I said, I was 19 to 21 thinking like that. And then I started one day running, and let me see, I told this story a bunch of times. I'm trying to see if I have a different way to tell it. I can just tell it how it is. One day I was staying in Los Angeles with a friend, and it was really nice. It was my first time there. It was like 2014. And I was culture shocked because it was February, and February here in Detroit, I mean, it get dark at 4 p.m., 4:30. The skies are gray. It's super cold. So, and February is right before, they say it gets darkest before the dawn. February is right before the vernal equinox or spring. So it gets beautiful in the next few weeks, but February is really dark here. So I went to LA during February, and it was really bright. It was the complete opposite. Grass was green, oceans was blue, skies were blue, everything. It was the complete opposite. And being out there for the first time in 2014, it just motivated me. I would say, you know what? I just want to go for a run. And I had never ran before. I had no experience running. I didn't even have on proper running shoes or running clothes or anything like that. I actually didn't even run properly. I just went out and did some sprints and burnt myself out and was incredibly too tired. I think that lasted maybe 10 minutes, and then I never went back to running again until like 2000, maybe 16. I came back home and just told myself, all right, I'm gonna try this running thing again. And I was doing it different. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to go from this stop sign to that stop sign. If I can make it from here to there, then I'm gonna go from the next stop sign to that light pole. And I was just kind of inching it together like that. And then I got better at it, better and got better and got better. And then I started to realize that running was making me feel better. I didn't realize that I had developed some anxiety. I didn't realize that I had low self-esteem. I guess you don't feel like you don't realize you got low self-esteem until you get higher self-esteem. I didn't realize those things, and running was giving me a higher self-esteem because now I felt like I could do something that I never thought I would be able to do. And that just gave me a boost. And that I didn't really have a huge bout with depression, but I had some mild depressions. I had just had a son in 2015. I didn't necessarily have my life together. I didn't really have a solid, sustainable career in my life at that time. So things were definitely bothering much more than they should have mentally. And just running, once I started running, whether I was doing 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, or 4, it just started to make me feel better and better and better and better. And then moving forward, that's 2016, 17, 18. Oh, by the time 2018 came around, I was full fledged. I mean, I was running 20 miles, 25 miles a week, 30 miles a week at this point. And then I was signing up. I signed up for my first half marathon right here in Detroit. I signed up for another one down in Dallas in 2018. And then at the top of 2019, I signed up for a half marathon in Miami. So I was just on a tear, you know what I'm saying? Just going back to back. Cause now I'm like, damn, I can really run. I can really do this. I never thought that I would be able to do this. So after after the Miami marathon in 2019, I get back home and somebody hit me up like, yo, you know this dude, Lance? Y'all was just down in the Miami marathon together. Y'all should link up because both of y'all from Detroit and you two are the only ones in our age demographic that we see running. So by this time, from 2017 to 2019, I had totally transformed my Instagram page. Right, I used to be in the music business. I was in the music business for from 2009 to 2019, really like 10 years. But by this time, I had only posted about running. I didn't post about nothing I did previous. I was only posting running, my runs, what I'm doing, medals I'm getting, and a mutual friend between me and Lance told me that he's doing the same thing in the city of Detroit. So Lance and I connected. We met up, and we realized that all those things that I just told you about how it was making me feel, he had the same sentiment. He was going through the same things. He was like, yo, I just started this run journey too. And I was going through some stuff myself, and it's making me feel better too, man. And I'm inching it together like you. I'm running 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile at a time, but I'm feeling good about it. So Lance had a small group of people that he was putting together. I had a small group of people that I was putting together to link up and run. I mean, when I say small, I mean small, like 5, 7 people. I was just dragging anybody outside who would just come run. Like, I didn't care who you were. Like, if you wanted to meet me at the track and do a bunch of laps, who show up. I didn't care. I just wanted people to feel good how I felt good because I know that they were being afflicted with the same things that I was, if not worse. Those afflictions being anxiety or depression or just any bodily things. Because, you know, when you run too, running will make you throw up if you've been eating bad or if you've been drinking bad or, you know, running will like wring your body out. It will rid you of any bad things you got going on. So, and I know that my cousins and people that was coming out with me, I know they were going through things. So he had the same exact sentiment. So after me and him met up at the top of 2019, we were like, you know what? Let's invite some people to run. Like let's make it official. Like let's put a flyer out, put a time, date, and a location, and let's do that. And that day was May 4th, 2019.
As you look back on your journey specifically, was there either a moment or a group of moments that really stands out that highlights for you why a group like We Run 313 or looking at the broader Detroit running community, why those have become such a necessary nature for your journey?
Well, when I was in music, like it was always like a hustle and bustle. It was always working to get acceptance from people. And I mean that in a literal, like you had to try to please the radio host, call them and try to get them to convince them to let you come on their radio show or try to please the DJ, try to get them to accept you. Or we would go to New York or Los Angeles and try to meet up with some A&Rs at a record label, trying to get them to accept you and knock down your door. And that's just not me. That's just not my personality. Like, I have much more to offer to the world than that. And when the Run Club started, it's like I didn't have to work to please anybody. All these people shared the same feelings I shared, and we just all bonded over that. We just all bonded. And when the Run Club started, it's like I had spent the last 10 years of my life kind of like trying to reach out to people and run after people. And now all these people were kind of coming to this thing that me and Lance created, this thing that we created. They were like coming to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I no longer had to try to go find support and go find respect. Like, all these people just showed up with those things in hand: respect, love, camaraderie, union, companionship, all these things. You know what I mean? So that was really big for me, and that brightened my soul. That brightened my life. That brightened my horizon. That like it's just different being around love and support. It's a much different environment than not, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, you talk about it, you say cultivated a community and you found a home in that. And to me, that's one of the things that stands out in, I guess, well collected running community. You know, I mean, you can't like blanket statement like every run club across the country. You can't speak for everybody. But it seems like, especially in your run club, you know, what you found, what you and Lance have built, there's a home in that, and there's a shared journey in that. And to connect it back, how much of that is a part of, you know, the demographics of Detroit? You know, the way that Detroit was, what Detroit is as a city. You talked about demographics, about the amount of Black community that's in Detroit. I know that there are also a lot of blue collar workers that live in. It's a very blue collar community. It's not a very affluent community, and so how much of that also is, you know, hearing your story and about some of the stuff that you've gone through, and also maybe that shared journey of folks who live in the Detroit area coming together for these things? What impact has that had, and how do you think that has contributed to this, you know, communal feeling?
So the history of Detroit is very unique, and the success of We Run 313 has everything to do with the history of Detroit. So like, just going back, Detroit blew up in the 50s, the 40s, late 40s, early 50s, the auto industrial revolution. We blew up, and in the 60s, like Detroit was the New York of the United States. It was the San Francisco. It was the hub for money and business in the United States, in the world, really. Because the auto industry blew up here first. This is the heartbeat of it, and it still is today. So in the 50s, Detroit blew up, and then in the late 60s, Detroit had a riot. We had a riot in the Rosa Parks area, and that area got burnt down. And from that riot, it was kind of like it was a racially charged riot. As you can imagine, that was like the Jim Crow era of the United States. So it was racially charged civil wars all across America. And we had one here, and call it the 67 riots. And in that riot, after that riot, we had what's called white flight, where all the white people left the city of Detroit. So you mentioned affluence. Detroit was very, very affluent. Very, very, like, this was the place to be. Like, if you were like most people here in Detroit, my grandparents migrated from the South. Most of the Black people here, right? So I don't want to get into United States history, but African American people traditionally are from the southern East Coast down to the third, right? Because that was where the slave trade would come in. And, you know, I don't have to get into that whole thing, But most of those people migrated north to Detroit. Well, not most, but most people in Detroit migrated from that region of the United States because of the opportunities, the work opportunities here in Detroit. And if you migrated here, Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors, they were saying like, hey, we'll give you a house, we'll give you this bonus, we'll give you a car, we'll do all these things just to migrate here. So it was very affluent. Like these people, we got a neighborhood right over here of these really, really nice homes that was built in the 50s and late 40s, right?
Mm-hmm.
We always be saying like, bro, these homes were built by plant workers. These are like $1,000 homes today. And it's like, yo, could you imagine like these are how they were making so much money that they were building houses like this from the ground up.
Yeah.
4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage homes. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a spiel on the affluence that we had. So after the 67 riots, we had white flight, and then all the white people left. And that is how Detroit, being a predominantly Black city, started. After that, we had the drug epidemic that took over the United States, the crack epidemic in Detroit. It was insane here. It tore down a lot of the city in the 80s, early 70s, really all through the 80s and early 90s. Then we had some really good mayors. Dennis Archer Jr. came and he started to revitalize the city and do these different things. Then the auto industry was still booming. And then in 2005, we lost the auto industry. We had to get the big bailout and all this stuff. So I'm just giving you the history just to kind of show where these people are at, right?
Yeah, really helpful.
Yeah, where we at. So going from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s up into 2005, our city had been destroyed many times. Detroit was built to house 2 million people. We had 2 million people or more in the 50s. So white flight happened, crack cocaine happened, the auto industry crashed. We lost about 1.5 million people over that 40 to 50 year span. So we got all this land mass. And so when you Google Detroit, you could see abandoned homes, abandoned buildings, and all this stuff. That's because we lost all our people over the last 40, 50, 60 years. And we only had, well, we're rebuilding. We're closer to 700,000 people now, but we had to pretty much start over as a city. So where does that put somebody in a mind state who's my age? Well, when you go through all those things, loss of jobs and crack and all these things, now you got these young people who are just doing crime because they're a byproduct of the history that we had. So crime is high. And recreation, the only true recreation for somebody who's outside of high school is crime adjacent. You know what I'm saying? Doing something, hanging out in the neighborhood, and something is bound to happen. So that's how we ended up with a high crime rate. So what does that have to do with WeRun313? It has a lot to do with WeRun313. So for years, my generation of people, my age group, they call us crack babies because it was our parents who were involved in the epidemic of the 80s. I was born in 91, so I was born like at the end of it. But a lot of us was born in 89, 80, 87, and 86. That's our age group for WeRun313. So like 30 to 38, 37, that's our age demographic. So those people been afflicted with all those problems that I just mentioned for years. And at this time, they just needed a healthy way to conquer life, not cope with life. Because for years, we've been given coping mechanisms and not conquering mechanisms. everything isn't always about just coping with something. We want to conquer these things that we had. It's rough growing up in a city where it's high crime, where there's food disparities, where there's liquor stores on every corner. Now they're putting marijuana dispensaries right across the street from the liquor store. So like, it's hard growing up in a city like that. And then, like I just mentioned, our city was built to house 2 million people. We had 500, 600,000 people. So there's vacant houses everywhere.
Mm.
That's not safe for anybody. So we got all these things swirling. And then when WeRun313 came about, I think that it just kind of gave people a healthy way to deal with everything that they've been dealing with for the last 3 or 4 decades.
How much of this, I find it fascinating, being able to connect your present sort of circumstances to how the history of the city of Detroit has afflicted those who are in Detroit now. I very much see within even, you talk about even just American culture, people constantly trying to disconnect the past from what's happening right now. And I think as you just showed us, it's impossible to do that. How much of that is developed before WeRun313, and how much of that has come apart by nature of being, this leader and this figure within the Detroit community? Because I mean, and I say Detroit community, not just Detroit running community, but Detroit community. How much of this is, I'll say, just an embedded part of your lifestyle, learning, things like that, and how much of this have you come to know over the time of being a leader in the community?
When you say how much of this, what is the this you're referring to?
Yeah, sorry. So how much of the history of Detroit, the racial undertones, how much of those ideas, those and I just can't find the right word to really collect it all together. But how much of maybe what you shared, and probably even more stuff that's deeper, how much of that is, I guess, one, is known to you and probably known by the community before this even happens, and how much continues to get unpacked and unfurled as you guys are practicing community?
You know what's crazy? I just wrote on my Facebook yesterday that I asked the question, do Detroit need as many liquor stores and weed dispensaries as it has? And I know we here to talk about running, but I mean,
no,
we're talking about landscape in Detroit. So, I mean, it's, and some people were responding to it. But the thing is, I think that the majority of Detroit don't see the problem because they're in it, right? You know how this might be a gross example, but you know how if you're around fecal matter long enough, you stop smelling it.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like manure, right? If somebody do your yard, you smell it, and then after a while, it's it doesn't bother you anymore. So you might forget that it's cow manure on your grass. And I think that's part of it too. We're in it, and the people here are hustling and bustling, and they don't necessarily have the time or the luxury to stop and examine what's going on because they're living in it and bills are due and children got to get fed. So people got to go. But me personally, I just kind of always took a deeper look at things. Like I said, I stopped eating fast food as a teenager because I just was always just curious as of why was I doing something, or what's in this, or what is going on here. You know what I mean? So it's just always kind of been known to me.
Yeah. And I mean, you say it's not about running. And I think at the end of the day, it kind of becomes about running, movement, activation, whatever it is. Because it seems like in a lot of ways, the external society that exists around us contributes to the amount of movement we do, right? We've, especially thinking nowadays, the way that society has developed and jobs have developed, it's a lot of sitting, it's a lot of not doing anything. And there's something to that, of saying like, it means that any sort of movement becomes so important, so vital, and everything like that. And I think that when we look at what is happening in the community outside of the running community, outside of the run club, to me, it plays such a huge role, because it begins to define how important the run club is for those who are a part of it.
Now, I'll say this. So we see people all the time who get inspired to start a run club just like exactly the same way we did. And that's okay, because ultimately, America is not a super healthy place. And more specifically, the African American population is not healthy by far. So we want to see more people running, right? But they try to, a lot of times they try to emulate what we done. But like you said, you can't necessarily emulate it, because Detroit cultivated it. Like the history of Detroit, like only reason, what I'm saying, I questioned fast food was because it's on every corner here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that, me questioning fast food, sprungboard me into a health conscious lifestyle, which opened me up to running. So like the landscape cultivated the idea, and that's what keeps me going every day. And me wanting to see people healthy in Detroit, because my own family had and currently has these afflictions. That's what keeps me going every day. So people, like, if you're gonna emulate it, you can't emulate that, because that's molecular, right? Yeah. That's in me to do this. You know what I mean? So like, you could create a run group and put a flyer out and say that you're going to run on Tuesday, but the people might not know that it's something bigger, much bigger brewing behind all that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can't be emulated.
Well, and as I hear all these stories, especially of the different run clubs, run groups, when we hear all of the different things, I think it highlights even more, right? There's not one like prescriptive pill, like you said, to start a run club, but it seems like what you have done is, in Detroit, you've created a starting point for Detroit, right? You've created a starting point for people in Detroit to be able to experience this, to be able to, with external circumstances around them. And for the leaders in your group, whether it's you or Lance, or it's any of your captains, friends, go see the WeRun313 website. I mean, they've got just all sorts of leadership in the club. Those leaders, those people who are leading in the community, they're going to need to be aware of what's happening, with their specific groups, with their specific things. And in a lot of ways, you say the history of Detroit is what cultivated WeRun313. It's what cultivated you. I think what that speaks to is, it doesn't matter where you start a run club. The starting point has to be where you're starting a run club. So if I try to emulate what y'all have done in Detroit, I can't do it, because I live in Suffolk, Virginia. I live in Hampton Roads. We have our own issues that are not the same. They might be similar in nature, but ultimately they're not. And for us to be able to recognize, okay, this is where I live, this is what people are going through. You talk about what Detroit used to be, right? And the affluence that was in Detroit, and the money that used to be there, and now it's gone. I mean, you could even think like, what would a run club have looked like when Detroit was affluent? What would a run club look like now? And it would be completely different. Those external circumstances seem like they're playing a huge role. The external circumstances of Detroit as a city, of how you and Lance especially have experienced the city of Detroit, how it's raised you, nurtured you, made you who you are. Those are what's playing the role in what this run community is. And then not just in developing people as runners, but how much of We Run 313 is developing people not just as runners, but as human beings.
Right.
Like,
right.
How much are y'all doing that? And what is, like, I guess, what are the overt ways that that's happening? I guess because I don't overt, covert. Like, how are you showing it out there? But also, like, what are the small things that you do also that are helping folks just to understand? It's like, we're running through these streets, and this is the city that we live in. What does pride look like for that?
So I'll tell you some of the ways that because you're asking basically like, how are we like changing people for the better?
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, man, one of the main things is weight loss. So much so that we just had a gala like 2 weeks ago, and we had awards and recognition portion.
Oh man. If you're listening right now, go and look at the pictures of this gala. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, man. Y'all dressed to the nines. That was awesome.
Thank you, brother. So we had awards and recognition, and we gave away an award for the person who lost the most weight. So and there was a lot of people nominated for that. Mm-hmm. So that's when we started doing that in 2019 indirectly, because I mean, if you're showing up and running 3 times a week, I mean, you're gonna burn some calories. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna burn through some calories. So that's one way. And another way is like the same way that helped me with my self-esteem was doing something that I didn't realize I could do. Like, these people, man, are starting from zero and running their first marathon after a few years, running half marathons in this city, going to that city, running this 5K, running that 5K. These are things that they didn't believe that they could do. And through them committing themselves to We Run 313 in our processes, they've been able to conquer some amazing things. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. So we've seen them take that same tenacity and in their work life, in their at-home life, in their marriage life, relationships with their kids, like their hobbies, so many different things. So we've seen people take what they've gotten here in the running space and take it very far in their lives, Yeah, so that's just, I could sit here all day and give examples, but those are 2 main examples, you know what I mean?
And again, I think that when we look at what running community looks like, it's not the, again, like, point by point prescribed everything, right? It's not the prescribed workout for the person who's training for the marathon. What is it? It feels like it's that spirit. When I started my run club, I kept on wanting it to be, not the big national run clubs, but even just like look like some of the big area run clubs, and to recognize that, at the end of the day, it's not trying to make myself like them. It's trying to look at the spirit that they're bringing to the running community, and recognizing the community that I have around us, and where we are and what we have and how we can give back to that community, how we can help that community. As We Run 313 continues to grow, I'd imagine it's still growing, continues to do business. What are business as in, logging miles, having fun, getting laughs, things like that. What are some of the things that you're looking towards for We Run 313? What are goals that y'all have? What are ambitions that you look towards? It seems like rebuilding Detroit. I don't know if that sounds like weird or like ambitious or whatever. And it really is trying to take that spirit. What does it look like for y'all to do that through running and through sort of making better human beings as you're moving, as you're getting around?
So the first thing is like giving people healthy alternatives. Like I said, like, we want conquering mechanisms and not coping mechanisms. For years, here in Detroit, we've been using food, alcohol, and drugs as coping mechanisms with life, for the rough life that's been brought upon us here. So we want to use We Run 313 as a life conquering mechanism moving forward. And we've seen a lot of other programs uh, spring up. So there's biking programs that we had even before We Run 313, there was a huge bike program here called Slow Road, where it would be thousands of people on bikes just riding through the city. And then there's a rollerblading organization. They rollerblade through the city. We partnered with them before. Now there's massive yoga collectives that do these big yoga events in the park. So like there's all these healthy alternatives popping up around the city of Detroit. And I'm just glad that We Run 313 is nestled in the middle of that and a part of that. But so that's definitely a part of rebuilding the city, because no city can rise higher than its people. And you need people who are in high places mentally. Like in the Bible, Paul said, we war not with flesh and blood, but with principalities in high places. High places is in our head. The war is not with flesh and blood, it's with what we're thinking. So if we can these healthy alternatives to inspire people to think different and be different, then those people will go out with a brand new ingenuity, a brand new way to look at life, and they'll be responsible for rebuilding the city. But as far as We Run 313, I think the next phase in We Run 313 is being intentional about those things that we weren't intentional about before, but still had success at. So like I mentioned, how we just by default had people losing weight. Like I want to write that down. Like I want to see, hey, who really had diabetes? How did we help curb the effects? Who really had hypertension? You know what I'm saying? Who really was struggling with obesity? Who really was struggling with alcohol? Who really was struggling with drugs, or even prescription drugs? Like who really was struggling with some form of cancer? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that we can fix and cure everything. I'm not saying that. But
yeah,
we want to be able to prove that We Run 313 and what we do just really overall help and betters people's situation. Who really was struggling with depression? Who really was struggling with anxiety? You know what I mean? Who really, or outside of afflictions, who really was just looking for a community, family, of people that you can call your friends. That's another thing that I didn't mention is we watch people in a run club create friendships that they're probably going to have for the rest of their life. We've seen people have children. We got about 4 babies that been born out of the run club. We got engagements. We got a lot of different things, man. And like from the history of Detroit, people just wanted something different. They wanted to get out of the smog and get into fresh air. You know what I mean? Like the only outlet for somebody that's 21 is going to the club. And that's just drinking, smoking, hanging out. You know what I mean? I know because I was a part of that scene before. And going to like on Tuesday here, I mean, I don't know what nightclubs look like there, but they got $2 shots. That's like a common thing everywhere though. Like the $2 shots was the thing to do on Tuesdays. They call it $2 Tuesday. But we got 2 Mile Tuesday. We want the city to be known for getting healthy on a Tuesday. Now there's a Wednesday yoga activation. There's a Thursday rollerblade activation. We also got to run on Thursday. There's a Saturday biking activation. Like let's let these days be known for these things and not bar nights, club night. I'm not mad at entertainment and the entertainment clubs and things like that. I know that they fuel the economy too, but let's fuel the people. We got to put people over the economy, because if we keep putting economy over people, we'll never have powerful enough people to run our cities and maintain our economies. Ultimately, I know I said a lot.
No, I mean, that all is so great, because I think when we look at what it means to run, right? Running is a series of single leg hops, right? And you do it long enough and you can raise your heart rate to the point which, you start to receive medical benefit, all the technical stuff, right? And seemingly such a simple activity, and yet it does come with sort of a lot of different things that folks often don't want to get involved in, or maybe that there are things around them that may drive them to not want to do it. And I think as we've hit this, I've called it before, this new running boom, this the COVID running boom, I'm just going to start calling it that, right? The 2020 boom. You start to see people who are connecting more with body movement, with moving their body, whether it is running, biking. I mean, that's cool. Rollerblading, that's awesome. I want to start. We see people connecting more with this body movement. And as community leaders, I think there's an opportunity for us to look at how people now caring, in some sense, about their bodies helps us to also then care about society as a whole. And that's something I don't want to lose in these run club movements, is we're not only healing people, but we're also trying to heal society. And I love the perspective that We Run 313 brings from it. And I love that you brought the background of Detroit in that as well, because Detroit is one of those cities. And man, you think about the history of America at large, and Detroit is one of those cities that almost really embodies it, from the richness of the 40s, 50s, 60s to now just the impoverished nature of used to be big city, now city. And the perspective of beginning to heal through the healthiness that is, really kind of shows off what community itself can do, and even more so what running community can do. For you, as you're continuing this journey, you've talked about hoping to just be that example for folks, to be able to show folks that it's possible, that this can work. But as you continue to do it, I mean, do you have hopes for Detroit? I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Detroit is on the rise, bro. Like, we got new skyscraper being built. We got tons of new businesses. So many Black businesses been opened in the last 5 years. New restaurants. We got the number one Riverwalk in the United States. I voted 2 or 3 times in a year by USA Today.
Nice.
Detroit has been on global travel lists, ranked with other big cities in the world, global destinations. I mean, Detroit is the only place where you're going to get 4 major sporting teams within a quarter mile of each other, walking distance. Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Red Wings, all right there in the same area. It's the only place where you can get that. It's the only place where you can run a marathon in another country and come back to the United States all in the same race. And this is the only place where there's an underwater mile. Like, we got a lot. Our population is growing. Employment is going up. Crime is going down. Detroit is becoming a new budding tech hub for the Midwest. There's a lot going on here. Our Lions are 12-2, which is insane.
Yeah.
Which is insane. Ford Field gets packed out every time they come home. So we got a lot going on here. Sure.
I told a friend, I think Dan Campbell's just releasing his anger from that 0-16 season on everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it also can be a testament to what caring about your community, caring about the place that you live, really can put into that. You talk about it as a group, a social club that connects like-minded individuals through running to build healthier and happier relationships. And I want to, it's a somewhat rhetorical question, but how much of that like-mindedness is, I want to live in a city that I'm proud of?
Yeah.
in a body that I'm proud, or as a person that I'm proud of. And to really sit with that question probably could get a lot of run leaders and even runners thinking. Listeners, don't think like this means you need to move out of your communities, but I wonder how much we can start to balance both of those together. When we see our communities and they don't look like, act like, you know, feel like that healthier sense, for us to maybe want to get out and do something about it, for us to be involved, to get active, and to be a source of building that more health conscious understanding of living.
Yeah, your community is up to you.
Mm.
It's really up to you. And if your community don't look like how you want it to look like, that's really up to the people in a community. There's overarching politics that often govern what these communities look like, but those local politics is up to the people. And I'm not trying to make this political, but you can kind of carve out how you want things to be. You got to be that person that you want to see in your community. Your run group got to be that group of people that you want to see in your community. That garden that you plant has to be that start of agriculture that you want to see in your community to combat bad food. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying this can be funny. I'm not saying like if there's crime, go out and be Batman, right? I'm not saying that, but I am saying that though. Like, be responsible for the change that you want to see.
Well, and sometimes a great way to change, is to create a community of like-minded individuals getting together for a happier and healthier community. Maybe sometimes it means just inviting friends to come and join you for 2 miles, or just get out and walk with someone. I feel like there's so much to that. I mean, right? You don't have to feel like Batman, but you can still be Batman. Just getting people together. Sometimes community together is what can overpower maybe the badness that we experience around us. Maybe
like building community, what that looks like, you're not gonna know those people. Not gonna know them. So like, and I think that slows us down a lot, is the fact that we want to do it with our best friend that we've been knowing for 10 years, or we want to do that with our best friend that we've been knowing for 5 years. We want to do that with our cousins or our brother. Like, no, like they're not going to be on the same page as you. More than likely, they're not going to be on the same page as you, especially when you're doing something like different, super different like this. You're going to have to put it out there that, hey, I'm doing this thing. And those people that show up, those are the people that you invest in. Those are the people that time with and build this community, because they're going to be on the same page as you. You know what I'm saying? And when I look around at WeRun313, and I used to think like, man, I don't know none of these people. Like, it didn't matter. Like, those are the people that was on the same page. Those are the people that wanted what I wanted and wanted what me and Lance wanted. So we leaned into those people, and then more people like that showed up, and then more people like that showed up, and it just continues over and over and over again.
And I think it's allowing those relationships to foster, because the uncomfortable thing for a lot of people is that you might get, it's going to lead to diversity, and not in a bad way, like in a good way. It's going to lead to diversity. And for a lot of folks, it's going to make you uncomfortable because you haven't experienced that kind of diversity before. And for those of you in that space, allow that to happen. Like, allow it to happen. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Allow your understanding of what you think life needs to be shaken a little bit, to hear these stories. I can't tell you how many times, you hear about what's happened in some of these places where just the worst atrocities have happened. I mean, hearing about the race riots in Detroit, and just like allowing that to fill your understanding of what Detroit is nowadays. You know, I think back to conversations that I had with a lot of folks around, you know, the Unite the Right rallies in Charlottesville. I had James Dowell, who runs the run club out of Charlottesville, and we talked about, you know, all of that stuff. I mean, it's going to make you uncomfortable in a lot of ways. And we can recognize that it is ultimately going to help us when it comes to building our community, to be knowledgeable, to see people who are a part of our community. Because also, when you think about it, sometimes those friends that you have, they might not like actually be in your community, right? You know, we talk about gentrification and reverse gentrification. Again, we're back to not talking about running while also talking about running, right? And those kinds of things.
This is important. Yeah. One thing too, like, they're not gonna always look like you either, or they're not gonna dress like you. They're not gonna walk like you. They're not gonna talk like you. They're not gonna look like you. They're not gonna like the same foods you like. That's okay. That's okay as long as they're like-minded. Who they are on the outside is not really important. As long as who they are on the inside is what's important, because what's on the inside is gonna help build your cause and carry your cause. And that's, like you just said, that diversity is okay. Like, people get uncomfortable usually when they're around people that don't, like the same clothes they like, or like the same movies they like, or because this is how friends are made. Friends are made by liking the same things you like. But building community is bigger than making friends. It's much bigger, much more grander than making friends. You know what I'm saying? Community is diverse, and community is a bunch of people that are different coming together. That's the importance of it. So people have to accept people's differences when they're going into building a community like this.
And I mean that just exemplifies this whole nature behind community. And I mean, really, like, why I love being able to share these stories, because I think it pushes us into those spaces where we can begin to see what the potential of running community is. So let's hit these end of podcast questions for listeners. I've changed them up a little bit again. I wanted to shake things up. So we're going to start out, Joe, with some of them are the same, but we're going to start out with a little bit of this or that. So speed workouts or a long run?
Long run.
All right. Solo run or group run?
Group run.
All right, there you go. All right. Morning or evening runner?
I like morning, but evening, because I have a life too.
Yeah.
But I prefer to get it done in the day, but most of my runs are in the evening, for sure.
All right. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Okay. Music, podcast, or nothing while you're running?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. And what would you say is one piece of running gear that you need the most?
Shoes.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite distance to race?
Half marathon.
Nice. There we go. And lastly, Joe, can we close this episode out? Can you give our listeners a reason to join their local run club or group?
You should join your local run club, run group, run crew. They call it so many different things. You should join them because they're doing something positive in their community. Running is that magical thing that involves you in the most transformative process of your life. It transforms your mental, your spiritual, and your physical all in one place. So you should connect with those people, and getting better at running, you do it through a run group. I know they got training plans and all that, but run groups really make you a better runner. Sure.
And we could go with this all day, but Joe, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Oh, wow. What an amazing episode. I so much enjoyed getting to talk to Joe, getting to unpack a little bit of the history behind WeRun313, a little bit of the things that are happening in Detroit, and even hearing about the background of running in Detroit, even life in Detroit, and what that is like. I think it's so important. as we look at running communities, can be that we see that we can't replicate what they were doing, but we can almost emulate. We don't need to copy and paste, but we can look and see. It's like Joe knows so much about Detroit. What do you know about the places that you're running, about the places that you have community, about the things that are happening in that area? Do you know the history? And how does that play into how your run club, your run group, or even these groups that are popping up that you are attending can be better, can be more focused on community, can help to build and grow so that it's not just the people in the running community, but even the people in the greater community can look and see the great work that you are doing. I think that's a great lesson that we can learn and take from Joe. Beginning to hear, beginning to listen, beginning to be active in what it would look like for us to be community developers in our community. To look and see what is happening. Who are the people that need help? What is the kind of help that's needing? What can you do as a community to help make sure that these people are getting help? And even looking at how running can help in that respect as well. And so what a great conversation this was. I want to thank you for hanging out with me here on Run, Build, Grow. If you have a great story, I'd love to hear it. Email me at andrew@runninrev.com and we can get you booked for a podcast recording. And don't forget, connect with me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Strava, Substack. You'll find those links in the show notes. I publish and put content all over those places. You know, if today's episode gave you a spark, don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or head over to runbuildgrow.com to catch every podcast. You can go back and listen to the catalog, and even if you subscribe, have future episodes just automatically pop up in your feed. Got an extra minute? Jump on to Apple Podcasts, leave a quick rating or review. If you're on Spotify, drop a rating and a comment on this episode and other episodes you listen to. You know, it's a simple way to help others discover the show and even let me know what's resonating with you. And here's the deal. If you leave a review, I'll give you a shout out right here in the next episode. Want to go the extra mile? Support the podcast and keep it growing strong by heading to buymeacoffee.com/runandrev. Whether it's a one-time tip because you just absolutely enjoyed this episode, or if you want to become a regular supporter and a monthly member supporter of this podcast, every contribution helps this community grow on and off the run. Thanks for being here and for being part of this journey. Until next time, go crush it out there. And as always, make every mile count.